Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today I want to go over a warranty job which is coming, and I want to go over the reasons and the circumstances when I refuse a warranty. This is an Xbox One S which I repaired a couple of months ago now, which came to me originally for no display. I offer a 3-month warranty on all repairs, and this one came to me with no display, so I changed the HDMI retimer and I got the display working, got it sent back, and everything was fine. And basically it come back last week, so it came back to the business that sent it to me, and the customer said that it's no longer displaying. So I want to go over my reasonings for when I refuse a warranty. I've gone over before my reasonings when I accept a warranty, and when sometimes I'll give the customer the benefit of the doubt, and when not to give them the benefit of the doubt. And this time it's going to be and not giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I'll show you why in a minute. But basically, I take a few things into consideration. I take into consideration the length of time it's been. I take into consideration the type of repair I performed to start with, whether the problem that we're facing now is related to the initial problem, etc, etc. And this is one of those cases where I have to basically refuse the warranty and say, no, I've got to charge you again, and this is the reason why. So I thought it'd make a good video, and I thought it'd be an interesting topic. Let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Let me know if you've ever had to refuse warranty based on discretion, and is it a common thing for you guys? I don't get that many warranty jobs, but when I do, I generally do cover most things under warranty, but it's got to be related to the initial problem. And I've had a few things in the past. I've had things where I've replaced, for example, a hard drive, and then they've come back for no power, and I've said, well, look, it's a completely different issue, blah blah blah. And depending on what I've got to do to it, sometimes I'll use my discretion and say, well, okay, it's really simple, blah blah blah. I'm not going to charge you. And obviously this is going to be a case where micro soldering is involved, and I haven't even opened it up, and I already know what's gone wrong with this particular console. So let me pop to the overhead cam and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so I'm pretty zoomed in here, and the reason for that is because I'm looking at the HDMI port itself. So this has come back for no display, and obviously when it went to the customer, I'll do the wiggle test to make sure everything's fine. I'll make sure the HDMI port isn't damaged and that sort of thing. And this one, as you'll see here, is split in the middle, and that is going to be most likely the reason for no display. If we take a look at the port, if we take a look at what it's meant to look like, we can see we've got the HDMI input port here. It's all nice and flat, and everything looks fine. It's absolutely fine there. It's solid. If we take a look at this one, we've got an issue in the middle. It's split, which means that the HDMI port isn't going to sit in there properly. And the problem with that is if it doesn't sit in there properly, the pins are not going to make a full contact. It's also bent outwards as well, which means it's not sitting that way properly, but it's also not going to be sitting that way properly. So one of the sides of the port are not going to make a contact, and as you'll see here, we've got pins on each side of this port. So we've got pins there, and we've got pins on this side as well. I don't know if the port is loose, but it does feel loose when I'm trying to insert a HDMI cable. So I'll just show you that now quickly. So if I pop the HDMI cable in there, you can see straight away, and it's going to be a bit difficult to get this to focus at this zoom level. Oh, there we go. So you can see straight away that that is moving around pretty badly inside there. I can't get it to push all the way in and lock in. If I try and do that in the HDMI input side, you hear that click as it locks in. And yes, it'll still wiggle around a little bit, but it's fairly solid to get back out. There's no lock there, it's spongy, because it's not clipping in all the way. So if you look there on the HDMI port, you can see that we've got some locking tabs on the port itself, and those locking tabs are supposed to snap into place on the actual port. So you can see inside the port there, we've got some grooves there. They're actually tabs, and if you look, they're supposed to lock into the HDMI port, which is what keeps it in. The reason that this isn't locking in is because this side of the port has been pushed apart, and that is not something that you'd cover on a typical warranty job unless it was a HDMI port that you'd very recently done and it's just suddenly broken again. One of the things I always advise when I replace a HDMI encoder or something like that is I always advise the customer to change the HDMI cable. They are super cheap, they don't cost much to replace, and it's always advised just in case when the HDMI encoder has been damaged, it's been caused by the cable. And this is probably one of these cases. The customer hasn't taken my advice and they haven't replaced it. And that's what's caused this issue. So this won't be done under warranty, and unfortunately the customer has got to pay again. So let's get this apart and we'll see if we can fix it. Okay, so we're going to pop off the clips here. And I'll fast forward through this, but while I'm fast forwarding through, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, then I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and turn on the bell notifications. That way you don't miss any future videos. And if you want to support me, what I'll do, there's some donation links in the video description. Or you can become a Twitch Prime subscriber by heading over to Twitch, linking your Amazon Prime account, and then hitting subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Alright, so let's get into this then, and we'll see what we can do about getting it working. Now, I will say, before I actually fast forward this, I will say that if the HDMI encoder has gone, I won't charge for another encoder. It's a £4 part. It's, you know, I can do it at the same time, but I will be charging for the HDMI port because it's very visible that it's user damage and it's no fault of mine. So I shouldn't have to lose out on, you know, money or time or anything like that because the customer hasn't taken my advice. So I'll still charge for the HDMI port, but if the HDMI encoder ends up needing replacing again, I'll very likely end up doing that for free just as a goodwill gesture. But other than that, the customer is going to have to pay for the HDMI port. They didn't pay for a HDMI port originally, and there was nothing wrong with the HDMI port when it left here. I always give them a wiggle test and make sure that the port isn't loose before it goes out. If it's loose, if I've changed the encoder and it's loose, I'll advise the customer and I'll say, look, your port is loose. If you blow the encoder because of it, I can't be responsible. But, you know, most of the time they end up opting to have the port done at the same time when that's the case. Usually I'll send pictures and things like that to justify the work, but most of the time they will end up having the port done as well. But anyway, I'll fast forward through the rest of this and see you on the other side. Okay, so here we are then, and we can see this a little bit clearer now. So if we take a look here, hopefully the camera is going to focus on that. But if we take a look here, you can very visibly see that we've got damage on this HDMI port, and yeah, it's definitely going to need replacing. So let's just pop under the scope and we'll see what's actually going on underneath. Let's make sure 100% that I didn't actually change the port, because the problem is when I'm doing work, sometimes if I do various different jobs on one particular console, I won't actually report on my personal log files, on the log files that I keep, what I've done to it. So I'll just put no display, here's the price. So if I've changed the port, you know, during the initial repair, then, you know, we'll see. I'll see what I've done to it. But I do notice that it's got a HGST hard drive, so I could potentially have just changed the hard drive. I don't know. Hard drive cost is the same as a HDMI encoder, so obviously the labour isn't as intensive, but the hard drive itself, you know, they're fairly expensive compared to the cost of the chip. So I charge the same for a hard drive as I do for an encoder. So let's just take a look. I can see that the encoder has been changed, so I might have changed that and then found that that wasn't the original cause, and, you know, just left the original chip in my box of spares and then changed the hard drive to fix an old display. But let's just take a look and see, make sure that I haven't changed the HDMI port, because if I have, then yeah, I'd probably do it under warranty. Okay, let's just have a look here. Okay, yep, that is indeed a factory port, and yep, definitely haven't changed that port. That's factory solder, and it's a little bit difficult to focus there, but you can clearly see there that is definitely lead-free solder just by the colour of it. You'll see the difference once I actually change it, but if we take a look at the actual damage, it's pretty rough, which is probably why this isn't working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my hot air at 480 degrees Celsius at 40% airflow. And I'm going to leave the heatsink on just so as the board is raised off the table. Usually I'd do this hanging over the edge of the table, but because I want to do it on camera, I'm doing it this way. But basically all I'm going to do, hot air at 480 and airflow at 40%. And I'm just going to heat up the area until the port comes off. Nice and simple, no need for low melt solder. And actually get subscribed because I'm going to be doing a comparison video soon on different brands of low melt solder. So I'm just going to heat up the board and I'm pretty much just going to wait for this port to drop out. I am going to support it though and make sure it doesn't drop out and take pads with it. So I'll support it with some tweezers and then just hover my hot air over the board just to heat up the area. You don't need low melt solder for these. Some people choose to use it, but I think it takes all of the skill out of the repair, to be honest. I had to move my hand away then, I had an itchy nose. Alright, this is almost ready to drop out now. There we go. So I could feel just by how loose it was that the back pins were definitely desoldered. So I'll just let it drop out. Trying not to burn myself. Alright, next up, I'm going to just clean out these ground holes. Now, I will say that low melt solder can definitely come in handy for cleaning out ground holes. So once I'm done with the video, that's probably all I'm going to use it for, just as a time saving measure. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a little bit of leaded solder just to lower this melting temperature a little bit. So I'll just add a bit of flux there. And then because I don't want to waste the good stuff, I'm going to use the cheap leaded solder, £20 eBay special, for a big reel of it. I think it's like a 1kg reel for £20. I always use this just to clean out ground holes, or for basically just lowering the melting temperature to wick away pads. And then I use the Kester for the actual soldering. So I'll just run over with the iron. And then I'm going to use a little bit of hot air with that, just to make sure that the solder goes all the way through. Then if I put the iron away, and keeping the heat on, I can just suck the solder clean out. Still got a bit of solder around the edges of the legs. I'm going to try and get as much out as I can. Alright, I think that'll do it. Let's just flip the board around and I'll pop under the scope. Okay, I'm just going to clean this up. Bit of IPA. Alright, let's just have a look at the retimer. Yep, so I have changed that retimer, but it has had a replacement hard drive. That's not the factory hard drive, so maybe I've changed the retimer and then found out that it wasn't the cause. Sometimes a hard drive will read good even though it's not, and that can cause no display. So yeah, I'm not sure. Alright, never mind. Let's just get this HDMI port changed. So I'll get a brand new port here. Just there. And I'm going to push down on the port. And then add some flux. And the easiest way that I've found to solder HDMI ports on the ones that I've done is just to drag solder it. So I'll show you how I do that. I've just realised I haven't replaced the solder that's on there with leaded. Never mind. That was a bit foolish of me. I'll just run across there with leaded solder. Alright, that's good to go. And then I'm going to press down on the port. And I'm just going to put a blob of solder there, look. Clean my iron. and then just drag the soldering iron backwards and forwards. There we go. Then I'm going to take some solder wick. I'll use the cheap wick, it's the first one I could see. There we go. Okay, let's just inspect underneath the port. Good, that looks perfect. So let's just give these pins a nudge, make sure that they're all good. So I'm going to make sure that none of the pins move and that they're all soldered nice and solid. Beautiful. Final test before I solder in the ground legs, just make sure that nothing ends up bridged. So with my multimeter in continuity mode, just going to check each of these pins individually against the one next to it, because sometimes we can have a bridge underneath the port. It's always important to just double check your work, because you can put this back together and then end up having to waste time taking it back apart again. It's much quicker to just check your work first time round. Most of the time you're not going to have a bridge if you can't see one, but you know, you are going to sometimes, and that appears absolutely perfect. So I'll do this bit without the microscope. I'll zoom in as best I can. Add some flux here. And then with the iron, I'm just going to solder these ground legs in. So the way I do these, I'll add some solder first. Just flow some solder on the ground legs. And then I'm going to use hot air in conjunction with the iron as well. Shut up, multimeter. So I'll just solder all of these in. And I'm using a bevel tip. I think it's a T15-B15, I think. 1.5mm bevel tip. I think that's the right tip. It's pretty much my go-to tip for everything, to be honest. There we go. And then just to make sure that solder pushes through, use the iron in conjunction with the hot air. Good as new. Alright, so I'm just going to clean up. So I'm using isopropyl alcohol on my toothbrush. I've usually got it in a bottle, but I've run out in the bottles. I've got some in a tub which I use to bath Nintendo switchboards in. I'm just using that at the minute. I can't bring it over here though because the tub's cracked. So, kind of don't want it leaking all over this table. I'm too lazy to change the tub. It only leaks when I move it. Alright, another thing I always do when I change a port is just give it a good scrub inside the ports. Just make sure they're nice and clean. If you get flux inside the port, it will stop a contact because it's non-conductive. So you don't want to get flux inside the port. As soon as it starts to dry and harden, you're going to start to run into issues. Before I clean this up, I'm just going to solder the ground legs on this side as well, just to add that extra little bit of strength to it. Okay, I'll use a little bit of hot air in conjunction with this just to assist it. Okay, Okay, so there's one side done. And there's that side done as well. Okay, so definitely got enough solder on there now. So I'll just give this one final clean while the board is still warm. Flux is going to be a lot easier to clean off if the board is warm. Trust me on that one. Okay, I'm not going to get in there with the toothbrush, so I'll just use a cotton swab. That should be all she wrote. That should be absolutely perfect. Sorry about the shaky hands. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so I do need to replace the thermal paste before I call this good. One little rule of mine, if it comes onto the bench, the thermal paste gets replaced. So I'm going to get that done. Okay, so that's old thermal paste on there. Even though it's only a couple of months old, I always change the thermal paste if I work on the device. Doesn't matter what I do to it, I always change the thermal paste. Even if it just comes in for a front panel replacement. And even if I've replaced it recently. Doesn't matter whether it's a warranty, whether it's a paid job, doesn't matter what it is, if the board has to be taken out for anything at all, then the thermal paste gets replaced. Because then I know that's one less thing that it's going to come back for. So we'll clean that off there, and then also clean off the heatsink as well. There we go. Let's put some fresh paste on it. Some lovely MX4. Nice pea size. Okay, and just for the purposes of the video, I'm going to test this outside the case, just so as we can confirm it working, and I'll call it good. Okay, so we get that initial fan spin. Just plug that in there. So I'm going to switch over to my other camera so as I can show you this. And it looks like it's taken out the encoder as well. That's going to suck. Let's just plug the HDMI cable out and back in just to make sure. Yeah, we still have no display here. Okay, so the one good thing about the HDMI encoder on the 1S is I can do it just like this. I don't need to unplug anything. As long as there's no power going through it, then it's absolutely fine. I'll just press that power button a few times, drain all the excess power, and let's go under the scope. So the reason that this is now going to be changed again is because unfortunately when they've damaged the HDMI port, they've taken out the encoder. And that was a brand new encoder. And I don't think it was the initial cause. So you can see there's a dot in that. That's not a burn mark. That's just where we basically push down on the chip to make it flat to the board. So don't worry about there being a dot in the middle of that. That looks like it's damaged. That is perfectly normal. When we replace the HDMI encoder, we basically take the tweezers and we'll press down on the chip. And you'll see that will line up with a pair of tweezers. But that little bit of scuff there, you know, it's nothing to worry about. I'm actually still set at 480, doesn't matter because I'm removing the encoder with no intention of putting it back, but I'll set it back to 440 for the replacement. So let's just add some flux. And then I'm going to get some leaded solder. Even though it's already got leaded solder on, I'm still going to refresh these pads. Again, using my favourite tip. Just add a little blob of solder in the middle. Alright, so you may notice something here. That's going to be that the chip I'm installing doesn't match the one I took off. The reason for that is because the past couple of months I haven't been able to get the SN75DP159. So we're using a TDP158, which is pin for pin compatible. It's just a newer model of the HDMI encoder, and it's made by the same company and everything, and it even says on the data sheet that it's pin for pin compatible. So you can use these with the Xbox One S, but you can't use the Xbox One S chip on the Xbox One X, but these work on both of them. And this chip is actually a better revision anyway. I believe this supports DisplayPort 2.0 instead of 1.4. So I'm just going to flow this solder till I see the middle pad melt. Come on. In about 3, 2, 1. There we go. That wasn't even rehearsed. Okay, so you saw that push into place there. That's called surface tension. I press down on the chip, push it flat to the board. I'm actually going to push it some more. I can't see any solder squeeze out, and that's not normal. We want to see solder squeeze out. Okay, there we go. Don't think there's much solder that would have squelched out, if any. A little bit at the bottom. Just there, so it looks like I put the perfect amount of solder on there. I've just melted all my flux as well, because I left it right by the board. Never mind. It's fine. I'll use that tube of flux before it ever has a chance to go off anyway. Alright, so I'm just going to run over these joints. The reason I like this bevel tip is because I can come at all angles. Look at the beautiful joint there. Nice shiny even joints. Let's just inspect this on an angle, just see if we're even. That looks close enough to me. I'm happy to accept it. Let's give this a clean one final time. So I'll clean it with a couple of cotton swabs first with some IPA on it, just to get rid of the bulk flux, so the vast majority of it, and soak that up onto the cotton swabs. Okay, and now I'm going to use the toothbrush to give it a proper scrub. Now that we've got no clumps of isopropyl alcohol. Okie doke. I'm just going to give it a dry. So it looks a bit slanty, but it is in line. It's absolutely fine. So if I just zoom in on this here, you can clearly see that it is lined up nicely. That everything's hunky-dory. So it looks a little bit off on this one side, but it's not. Well, it is, but it's not. It's not off to a point where it's going to cause a problem. It's soldered. Absolutely fine. No need to mess with it. Let's give this another whirl. Hopefully we've resolved the issue. And is it going to display? Huh. Okay, now that is weird. Am I having issues with my HDMI cable? Stay in school, kids. Stay in school, kids. Honest. Alright, please work now, because otherwise I'm going to look like an idiot. Oh, it's still not working. What the hell? What the hell? Why? There we go. Bit of a delay. That's got to be my TV that's playing up there. Let me just try that again. Right, HDMI cable out. Wait for it to show up with no signal. Come on. Yeah, there's a delay on my TV. That looks like a software lag there. Interesting. Okay, yeah, that's working fine. Cool. We're done. We're done. Let me just confirm it's working in 4K. Looks like a software lag on my computer. On my TV, sorry. No, I don't want to update my controller. Okay, I'm going to run through a few. Damn it! There's no HDMI. I've got no Wi-Fi card plugged in. Well, never mind. I'll test that later on. Yeah, 4K UHD working absolutely fine. As you can see, supports absolutely everything there. This console is working. So yeah, I mean, what more can I say really? Obviously, it looks like, because that's a HDST hard drive, it looks like I've changed the encoder before, realised it wasn't the fault, and replaced the hard drive. So this has now had 2 encoders out of me, and obviously the HDMI port being damaged, it's not my fault, and why should I have to lose out because of that? Because yes, I could take it to somewhere else could do it for them, that's absolutely fine, I'm more than happy with that. But the fact that it's been sent back to me and I've had to waste time that I could be spending either on other devices or, you know, cleaning up the workshop, I mean, I clearly don't get much time, but I've had to waste time on this, and obviously I shouldn't have to suffer for that. You know, I mean, I shouldn't have to lose out on time that I could be spending on other devices, time I could be spending cleaning, time I could be spending with family, or replying to emails, replying to comments on YouTube, etc, etc. I shouldn't have to suffer because the customer made a boo-boo. For that reason, they are going to be charged for the HDMI port. I'm not going to charge for the encoder, you know, I'll just throw it on there for nothing. But they are going to be charged for the HDMI port, and like I said, I shouldn't have to suffer for their boo-boo. So yeah, with that being said, this console is working now, and I'm sure the customer's not going to be happy knowing they're going to get another charge. Well, they already know they're going to get another charge, but I'm sure they're not going to be happy about it. But, you know, if they send it to someone else, they're going to charge them a full price. They're going to charge them for the port and the retimer. I've done both for the same price, for the price of a port. So I'm trying to look after my customers, but sometimes you've got to draw that line, and you've got to say, no, enough's enough. You can't do everything under warranty. You know, I mean, judging by the fact that this has had a replacement hard drive, I'm assuming it's me that's done that, and that was what fixed the original issue. So it would have never been HDMI related in the first place. So that would have been built for a hard drive. I'd have to confirm. I'll leave it just down there and just let you know whether that was the case. Obviously, I can't show you invoice details because, you know, private and confidential and all of that, but I'm pretty sure this was probably initially a hard drive replacement, not a HDMI issue. So yes, I did change the encoder, but that would have been because the original hard drive would have been showing up as good. Like I said, the hard drive does cause no display, and sometimes it doesn't shut down, but then sometimes it will shut down after between 30 and 60 seconds if you've got a bad hard drive. It's finicky. It's really tricky sometimes. Sometimes I control the life area. Sometimes you can be sitting there scratching your head for an hour wondering what the hell's going on, and suddenly have a eureka moment and think, hang on a minute, hard drive must be bad because I've tried everything else. But, you know, such is life and all of that. So, obviously, this job is done. It can go back to the customer working. And hopefully they're going to take my advice this time and change their HDMI cable. Oh well, never mind. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this has given you a little bit of insight into, you know, the way that I see it, the way that you might see it, the way that you probably should see it. You can't always be a yes man and please the customer. Sometimes you got to draw that line. Hopefully you found it helpful. Hopefully it helps you to, you know, make a decision on what you should and shouldn't do. I'm not saying that my decision is right. You might have a different opinion. More than welcome to it. If you are, let me know. I'm more than happy to have, you know, a debated argument, a friendly debated argument in the comments. As long as I don't get called a prick, and as long as I don't get called a scammer, because I've had that being called before. But oh well, I'm showing you the process, my thought process, and hopefully you at least understand where I'm coming from. That's going to be for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you do have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section down below. I'll always do my best to answer. If you do want to organise a repair, then there'll be a website address in the video description. You can get in touch and you can send in your device for repair. I work on last gen and current gen consoles, as well as MacBooks, laptops, and some phone work, as long as it doesn't involve me ungluing a screen. So yeah, if you want to send in a repair, you're more than welcome to. If you find these videos useful and you want to support me, there'll be a Patreon link in the video description. You can become a Patreon sponsor. You can become a channel member using the join button below the video. You can head over to Twitch and become a Twitch Prime subscriber, or even just a normal Twitch subscriber, you know, whichever you prefer. Or you can donate directly by heading over to the video description and checking out the PayPal and Square checkout links for direct donations as well. If you want to send any gifts, then you're more than welcome to do that. Get in touch and I'll happily give you my address to send in gifts. But just the fact that you're watching this video now and the fact that you've watched it to the end is enough for me. And I really do appreciate the support. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.